Welcome back to the Growth Podcast, everyone. I'm Selena, and today we're diving into a world that most of us only see from a distance, the high-stakes, high-precision world of maritime navigation. Imagine being responsible for a vessel the size of 3 football fields in the middle of a high-risk strait.
It's a lot of weight on your shoulders, Selena, but honestly, it's also an incredible honor. I've spent most of my career on crude oil tankers, and let me tell you, there's nothing quite like the responsibility of navigating those massive VLCCs through some of the busiest waters in the world.
I can only imagine, Sam. You've been through the Red Sea, the Hormuz Strait, and the Gulf of Aden. Those aren't just names on a map. They're areas with some really intense challenges, right? I heard you've even dealt with GPS jamming.
Oh, absolutely. In places like the Black Sea or the Baltic, you'll suddenly see your AIS signal or GPS just go haywire. It's called spoofing. When that happens, you can't just panic. You have to fall back on your core training.
Wait, so if the high-tech GPS fails, what do you actually do? Do you just look out the window and hope for the best?
Well, not exactly. What I mean is we switch to traditional terrestrial navigation. We use landmarks, radar bearings, and old-school cross-checking to confirm our position. It's about having that solid competence in both modern electronics and the stuff sailors have done for centuries.
That is so cool. It's like being a high-tech pilot and a traditional explorer at the same time. And then there's the security side of things. You mentioned the Bab el-Mandeb Strait near Yemen. That's a whole different level of stress, isn't it?
Exactly, Selena. There, the main concerns are piracy and security threats. We strictly follow something called BMP5, Best Management Practice Version 5. It's a rigorous set of guidelines to keep the crew, the cargo, and the ship safe from any external threats.
It sounds like you have to be constantly alert. Is there ever a moment where you can just breathe? Especially when you're in those super narrow spots like the Singapore Strait?
The Singapore and Malacca Straits are actually some of the most demanding areas. It's incredibly shallow and crowded. We have to follow SOM's regulations very strictly, especially regarding underkeel clearance. You're basically threading a needle with a giant ship.
Threading a needle with a tanker. I love that image, Sam. But before you even get to those straits, there's so much work that happens behind the scenes. As a second officer, you're basically the guardian of the navigation equipment, right?
That's a good way to put it. My main job is managing and maintaining every single navigational system on board. We follow a very strict safety management system and a planned maintenance system. It's daily, weekly, monthly. It never stops.
So it's not just about steering the ship. It's about making sure the brain of the ship is working perfectly. Can you give us an example of what that maintenance looks like? Like, what do you do with the ECDIS system?
Sure, for the ECDIS, which is our electronic chart system, every day I'm checking alarms and safety parameters like depth contours. I need to make sure the audible alarms actually work. If a reef is coming up, I need that system to scream at me, you know?
I would definitely want it to scream. And I guess you have to keep those charts updated too? I mean, the ocean changes, right?
Every single week, Selena, I install software updates, chart corrections, and navigational warnings. If a new wreck is found or a buoy is moved, I have to know. Then monthly, I'm checking licenses and doing full data backups. It's all about being audit ready at any second.
That level of detail is incredible. It reminds me of that saying, proper planning prevents poor performance. And speaking of planning, you mentioned that passage planning is the foundation of everything you do.
It really is. Under SOLAS regulations, We have to have a detailed plan from birth to berth. We use a 4-stage process: appraisal, planning, execution, and monitoring. It's a framework that ensures we don't miss a single detail.
Okay, let's break those down for our listeners because I think this framework can apply to any big project. What happens in the appraisal stage?
Appraisal is all about gathering intel. I'm looking at tide tables, weather forecasts, local notices, and vessel characteristics. You have to know what you're up against before you even draw a line on the map.
So, it's the research phase. Then comes planning, where you actually plot the route, right? You mentioned something called no-go areas?
Exactly. I mark the hazards, set the waypoints, and most importantly, I create contingency plans. What if we have an engine failure? Where do we go? The master has to approve everything before we even think about moving.
I love that. Always having a plan B ready. Then we have execution and monitoring. That's the actual sailing part, right? But it's not just sitting back and watching the autopilot.
Definitely not. Monitoring is a continuous process. I'm constantly comparing our actual position against the plan using every tool available. If the weather changes or there's heavy traffic, we might have to adjust the plan on the fly and inform the master immediately.
It sounds like you're constantly recalculating. Like a human GPS, you also mentioned some specific safety settings on the ECDIS, like the safety contour. Why is that so critical?
The safety contour is basically the line in the sand. It separates safe water from restricted water based on our ship's draft. If we cross that line, we're in danger of grounding. We also set a safety depth so we know exactly where it's getting too shallow for comfort.
That's such a powerful metaphor for life, too, knowing where your safety boundaries are. Now, Sam, we can't talk about tankers without talking about the cargo. You're dealing with crude oil, which means safety and pollution prevention are everything.
Absolutely. We follow MARPL and ISCOT guidelines to the letter. When we're loading or discharging, I'm monitoring tank levels, pressures, and the ship's stability every single minute. One wrong move, and you could affect the ship's structure, or worse, cause a spill.
And you have to keep the inert gas pressure right too, right? To prevent explosions? That sounds like a lot to keep track of while also doing safety rounds on the deck.
It is. We're checking the oxygen content in the tanks, inspecting mooring lines, checking the pump room for leaks. It's a full-body, full-mind operation. And then there's the cow process, cargo oil washing.
Wait, cargo oil washing? You use oil to clean the tanks that are full of oil? That sounds counterintuitive, Sam. How does that work?
I know, right? But it's actually brilliant. We spray the cargo oil at high pressure, like 8 to 12 bar, against the tank walls. It dissolves the sludge and residue. It makes the discharge way more efficient and prevents contamination for the next cargo. It's all about maximizing efficiency and following MARPL rules.
Wow. So even the cleaning process is a high-tech operation. Sam, listening to you, I'm struck by how much discipline and adaptability this job requires. You have to be an expert in so many different fields.
It's a journey of constant learning, Selena. Honestly, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you have to be fully committed to the highest standards. You can't cut corners when you're in the middle of the ocean.
That's a great lesson for all of us. Whether you're on a ship or in an office, those standards matter. So,